All right, Kevin, back with you with another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I am here with Jessica. And Jessica, this is our second conversation, and I didn't even ask you yet, how do you pronounce your last name? And so I suppose I should probably do that so I can make sure that I get it right.
Yes, everyone always asks that question. It's a hard one. It's Karwat. If you think of it,
Okay.
like a mixture of German and Polish in there.
Okay. And you and I were talking again. We had a conversation before, and then we got on, and before I hit the record button, I was joking about how I was like, oh, there's this chair in the background that's not normally there. So I was like, my wife put that in here, and I just noticed it right when you and I hopped on Zoom, did it?
It's the Christmas tree's fault.
That's right. That's right. And so, well, what I want to do is I want to start by giving a shout out to Hannah because, if not for Hannah Barlow, you and I would not even be talking right now. And she was the one that connected us. And, I interviewed Hannah a while back for the podcast. I invited her to be on one of these virtual roundtables that I host, and she ended up having a great experience there. And then she was like, Kevin, I want to experience more of that with you. And so her and I are, we've kind of partnered up in that way. And I just love Hannah and the way that she shows up, and what just an amazing testament to the power of relationships, which is what this podcast is all about. And I know you and Hannah are very close too, which it was really cool because when you and I first connected, it felt like we'd known each other for years because we have this mutual friend in Hannah.
I agree. Hannah is amazing. She truly changed my life, and I'm very grateful for her. So yeah, everyone needs to know her, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what I'd like to do, is I want to start by setting a little bit of context. Just I want to give the listeners a really good idea of who you are. So I want to start by having you share, what you do, who you serve, what inspires you most about the work you do and the impact you're making in the world, and also give us a little bit of background on how you got into doing this kind of work.
Yes, with pleasure. So I will start very like how everyone does with titles. So I am a women's health coach, a vegan nutritionist, and new TEDx speaker. As of a couple of days ago, I had my first TEDx talk,
Awesome.
which it was, I just loved it so much. And I'm also the founder of the Women's Academy of Transformation. I'm very passionate about health, especially holistic health, looking at it from all those different angles. I believe health today, it's changing, but a lot of times we see health in a very linear process. It's just the nutrition and the training or the movement. And so how it started for me is many years ago, I started having severe health issues, really bad breakouts on my face, digestive issues, weight gain, bloated, fogginess, brain fogginess, all of it. And I thought I was doing everything right. I was having the nutrition, to your point, I was moving my body, and I didn't understand what else was missing. I was like, I'm doing everything that everyone is telling me to do. What am I not seeing? And I'm also, I would say, a hard worker. Like, I'm very dedicated to working and doing this, and it's a passion of mine. So every time when I do something, it's my life pretty much, right? I'm like very dedicated to being successful in whatever it is that I'm doing, for like my definition of success, right? And so I was very confused because I thought I had all of these systems in place, but obviously I was missing a big piece that I didn't see back then. And so what ended up happening is I went deeper into nutrition. I went deeper into fitness. I eventually became an assistant coach working for another like vegan fitness influencer.
Okay.
And I was working both with men and women. And for the first time in my life, I had these really candid conversations with these women, because for some reason I saw these men succeed on this protocol of fitness, and nutrition. They were doing a lot better with the way that my coach was teaching them. But these women were struggling with those two aspects, and they were pointing out to me all of the other issues that they had. For example, emotional eating, PMS symptoms, right? Period problems, cycle hormones, cycle problems, hormonal health problems. I was like, so I don't understand, because on the one hand, I think I'm doing everything right as a coach, teaching them what we're supposed to know, nutrition and fitness, but then these women are having a hard time. And so for the first time, I also felt understood myself, because I was like, oh my God, it's not only me. I'm not going crazy. These women are struggling the same way.
Wow.
And so I started doing a little bit of more research, and I stumbled across this whole new world of hormonal health and holistic health, and how everything is connected, and how our thoughts create our reality, and how, something that could have happened 20 years ago has now effects on your body as like traumatic effects, and how emotions get stuck in the body, and all of those different things that I never heard about before. And it started to click with me, because I was like, we are not linear beings. We are not meant to just do things based on a protocol. We are all so different. We all have had different experiences, traumas, emotions, everything that we went through that makes us who we are today. And so being in this program, working with my ex-boss back then, I felt very misaligned. I was like, this is no longer what I want to do, because obviously I don't believe in just linear anymore. And so I stepped away from that. And that's when my first program was called the Plentiful Power Program. And eventually I founded the Women's Academy of Transformation. That was now almost 4 years ago. It's super short amount of time, but for some reason, I feel like it's been a lifetime. I feel like I've only been doing this forever. And at this point, I was able to help, hundreds and hundreds of women worldwide. I work with people from everywhere, the
Wow.
States, Canada, Europe, Australia, New Zealand. And I was really able, and I'm really able to help them see the potential that they have in themselves. And as a team with my assistant coach as well, she's amazing. We are there to really help these women see beyond just their weight and those superficial things that many women see as important, and take a step deeper, and really try to find themselves from within and understand themselves from within. And it's just so wonderful to see how much comes up for them when they finally have a click and they realize that it's actually not them. It's not their fault that they've been stuck forever. There's something so much deeper that needs to be looked at. So long story short, I hope that gave you a good summary of everything.
That was fantastic. And as I'm listening to you, Jessica, I see so much of myself, because I know in doing what I do now, there has been this road, this path, if you will, that things I was doing years ago were laying the foundation for the work that I get to do today. And what you just shared is the same exact kind of thing. It was this progression, and you made discoveries along the way that, like, oh, you know what? Now that I've got this insight or this perspective, what I was doing is no longer in alignment. This is going to be in alignment, and every entrepreneur goes through that process, I believe.
100%.
And so, yeah. I think a lot of entrepreneurs are really going to relate to that. And I didn't know that background history about you. And so now I'm looking forward to the next part of this conversation even more. And so I'm going to switch gears just a little bit. And so I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of the listeners. And so, Jessica, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons that completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships, Jessica.
Yeah. It's for a long time in my life, I didn't consider relationships important, believe it or not. I was like, I can do it on my own. I don't need anyone, all of that stuff, which we both know is not true, right? Maybe you're going to get to a certain point on your own, but eventually relationships are extremely important. And I'm not saying that I did never nurture relationships. It was like my personal relationships were important to me, but I always, I would say, divided my business to my personal life. And I thought my
Okay.
business was my own thing, and I didn't need to nurture those relationships because why should I? Which obviously, I understand it differently now. As you were just asking this question, there's three people that truly changed my life, but I do think the first person that truly changed my life and got me to where I am and helped me heal myself too is actually Hannah, believe it or
Okay.
not.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Hannah and I met in a very funny way. If Hannah watches this, she's gonna laugh because I remember her doing her like yoga retreats somewhere in Spain, and she was just starting out. And I remember her sending me a DM like, "Hey, girl, do you want to come to this yoga retreat?" I was like, "Who is this person? I have no idea who she is." And I haven't had my business at that point yet. I was living in Barcelona, I believe, working in marketing. And I was like, I didn't answer her because I'm like, I get these spammy emails, like spammy Instagram DMs all the time. And I remember somewhere around like 1 year later, I see this video pop up again of Hannah. And I followed her, but I would never see anything in my feed of her. And
Okay.
I see this video of like her standing in a landscape and like saying all of those really powerful things. I cannot rephrase them anymore, but I see this video and I'm like, oh my God, this really speaks to me. I need to know what she's doing. And so somehow I clicked on her, we connected. So we ended up, so I had two friends who wanted to create a mastermind with me. And they were like, hey, do you know someone else who would want to do like a mastermind with 4 people? And I invited Hannah to that. And that's how we like first started connecting. I found out about her journey, her programs. And I do think I started working with her 3 years ago for the first time. I thought I knew stuff. And then I worked with her and I was like completely mind blown. I would put all of my soul and heart into her teachings. And it truly had an impact to me that I continue working with her still. And she's a friend of mine now, like we are super close. But at the same time, I like still pay her to be my one-on-one mentor and be in her container because obviously I believe in the law of exchange, right? But at the same time, like I don't want to let her go. Like I just want to be around her energy, and she has truly transformed my life because not only has she helped heal me, but with all of the stuff that she was teaching, I was able to take that and use that knowledge and help my clients. So she created this ripple effect, which is
Wow.
insane to me because not a
Wow.
lot of people can do that.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people, in my opinion, not a lot of people can take something so profound, teach it to someone so that someone can teach it to someone, and it creates this entire. And I know this is her mission as well with the School of Integrative Healing. I know that that's what she wants to do. And she created that. And I see that with every other person that is part of her program, that she's able to hold herself, even if things are not going right, let's say, she's still able to show up in such integrity, which this is difficult. This is difficult work, right? Because if things on the external are not working out for you, many people fall into that. And I've never seen her have that dip, at least not from the outside, and she does the work. Let's say it like that. She does the work. So everything she is, she does it. And that's also for me integrity. And there's this other word I'm missing. You get my point. I'm missing one word which I can't think of right now.
That's
But
all
yeah,
right.
if I were to say it's Hannah and another person I'm happy to also mention.
Okay. Okay. It's interesting. As I listen to you talk about Hannah, there's this guy Jesse in my life, and I've known him for oh my gosh, let me see, like 11 years now. And when I started working with him at the end of 2012 and going into 2013, I know he was going through a really rough period personally. He got divorced. and his children, who they were not his biological children, but they were his children nonetheless because, he just viewed them as his children. And so when he went through that divorce, I can just only imagine how difficult it was for him. But I never, and I never thought he still kept serving me and showing up for me. And at the time, I didn't even feel comfortable asking him about what was going on in his person. I knew it was going on, but I'm just saying, I don't want to ask. I say, if he wants to talk, I'll talk, but I'm not going to ask. And, he has talked about that many times now. He openly talks about that. And it just, the fact that he just, and I wasn't his only client that he was working with at the time, but the fact that he continued to just show up at his very best and serve in spite of everything that's going on. And I'm not gonna lie, back then I really thought, like, wow, you know what, I sure do want to be like him, because nothing seems to ever bother him. Nothing seems to get him off his game, which was not true. It did impact him in a big way. And so I can only imagine, just some of the stuff that Hannah's been through as well, and yet she just continues to show up and serve and take care of those people who she's been honored to be able to serve and stuff, and there's so much to be said for that. And that's huge. That's huge.
That's an art. That's something that is only cultivated with time and with practice and with consistency. And I think that's what a lot of people in the personal development space, a lot of people think, oh, I do learn this one tool and I do it once and I'm done. It's every single day showing up, not for everyone, but first for yourself, so that you're then able to show up for other people. And that's something that takes practice and takes time,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Well, I know there's somebody else that you want to honor as well, and I want to make sure that I give you time to do that as well. So.
Yes. It's actually my friend Mario.
Okay.
Mario, I met in the beginning, at the start of my business. We were part. I love how everything just, I don't know. The world is sometimes very magical. We were part of the same accelerator business program. And Mario, he was part of it. I was part of it, and we were both German. So he was like, hey, I'm going to come to Berlin. Do you want to meet up? So I met him and his now wife for the first time. And we just stayed in touch all of the time. So it wasn't like a super deep connection or relationship, but we knew from each other, we knew of each other. We knew what everyone was up to. And we kind of both were going through ups and downs, and we would share and support each other. And then I remember he reached out to me at the end of the year, and I was at a very pretty bad low, last year. Yeah. I was kind of in a moment where I feel like an angel sent me his way, sent him to me at this moment, because I was in a moment where I wanted to give up on my business. I was like, this is no longer working. I feel lonely. I felt very lonely, which I think we spoke about that briefly in our first conversation, that as entrepreneurs, as an entrepreneur, especially working in the online space in front of your computer all the time, it can sometimes become very lonely. And so that's how I felt. I felt like no one understood, and no one understood my struggles, or at least I didn't have people that I could truly share that with. Because I was so used to always just sharing my wins and telling everyone I was great and pretending that everything's going right. And inside, I didn't feel this way. And so I remember he was reaching out to me. He's like, hey, Jess, how are you doing? What's up? And I didn't message him. I didn't reply him for 3 weeks, because I was like, I'm not in the headspace right now to talk to anyone. I was just not, again, I didn't want to lie again and be like, hey, everything is good. And so I replied to him a couple of weeks later, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to be brutally honest. And I sent him a message. I'm like, listen, Mario, I'm not feeling that great. I kind of feel very lonely in my, in my journey, and I don't really know what to do at this point. And he messaged me back. He's like, hey, I might have something for you that might, help you just feel a little bit better. And so he ended up introducing me to this organization,
Okay.
which is, spoke about this organization before as well, which is this network of people who are entrepreneurs, many different backgrounds. And so he introduced me to that, and he knew because he just did his TEDx talk last year in March, and his speech reached over 1 million views within a very short amount of time, which is not usual. Like, it's not
Yeah.
usual for someone to have so many views in such a short amount of time. His speech, amazing. I will send it to you. You have to check it out. And he was like, hey, Jess, I know you told me that you wanted to do a TEDx talk, right? I'm like, yeah, that's kind of on my vision board, but never knew how I was going to achieve it. I applied a couple of times, but the whole process is very, very strict, right? I have so many applications every day, probably. He's like, you know what? I know this guy. He might actually be able to help you. Just need to speak to him and introduce yourself to him. And so he did. Power of connections.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful to Mario, because Mario actually ended up being my coach and mentor for my TEDx talk. So he ended up helping me, craft this magical message that I was honored to bring out into the world. And I'm very, very grateful for Mario. He has been an amazing friend, an amazing coach, an amazing mentor. And I don't think without him, I would be where I am right now, and I wouldn't have gone to where I am. And he has such a beautiful heart. You got to meet. Maybe I'm going to introduce you guys actually, because I feel like Mario is just, yeah. And his wife as well. Like, they're just such beautiful beings. He's now based in South Africa. And so I would actually love to introduce you to him, because I think you're going to love him. No, everyone loves him. No one does not love him.
And what a beautiful thing that, so he has just had success with his own TED Talk, and is now helping other people effectively use that platform. And what an amazing platform that is, that just allows for the spread of valuable insight and information. And and people that are on that platform and have been very successful in using it are using what they have figured out, what they've discovered, to help other people to do the same thing. And that's an awesome thing. That's an awesome thing. And so
yeah, I think there's, when you see in people that they really give without wanting anything in return, that's, I think, what I've seen in Hannah and Mario.
yeah.
Giving, knowing that somehow the universe, God, is gonna, I believe in karma, somehow is gonna come back to you. It might not be from the same person, but it will be from someone else. And this is something that I learned from both of them too. It's just like trusting, giving, serving. That's the best gift that you can give to people, because you never know what someone is going through. You never know, even reaching out to those people who always seem fine. Those people also need to be reached out to, and sometimes just asked, hey,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I can tell you from my own experience is that, no matter who somebody is, no matter how successful they are, no matter how great things might look from the outside looking in, we never really know how somebody is doing. And I will also tell you that that in spite of all of that, there's not anybody on the face of this earth that gets too much appreciation. And just by being, and then this is something that my friend Jesse taught me 12 years ago, was this process, this idea of just being genuinely and actively appreciative of other people and stuff. And I remember back then he even challenged me. He said, Kevin, he said, you have a bunch of people, contacts, information in your phone. He's like, just go through your phone and look for some people, and then just whoever comes up for you as you're scrolling through that, like, oh, I haven't talked with them in a while, and whoever you feel led to, send a message, and in that message do one thing. Just let them know one thing that you genuinely appreciate about them, and don't do anything else. Don't ask for anything. Don't even ask for a response. Just send out some messages, and just sit here this afternoon and just enjoy the weather outside, and go through your phone and send messages to 10, 15, 20 people, and just watch what happens. And I'll tell you, that was such a powerful experience. We were down in Houston at that time, and I just sat outside the hotel. It was a beautiful sunny day, and I just sat out there, just going to my phone, sending messages to people. And I probably did, I don't know, maybe hour and a half, 2 hours. And some people I heard back from right away. One gal I remember in particular, and this was 12 years ago, I remember how she replied back to me, goes, oh my gosh, Kevin, she goes, getting this message from you made me cry right now because it just meant so much. And she goes, you know what? She goes, we haven't talked in a while. Can we make time to catch up? I'd love to make time and catch up with you and stuff. And just showing up that way for people is such a powerful thing. And like you said, well, for one, I mean, active appreciation, doing that, it takes nothing but a little bit of our time. And yet it's going to lead to so much. And giving of ourselves to others. I also want to challenge people, because I've been this giving, generous guy all my life, but for most of my life, I totally sucked when it came to receiving. and Jesse kind of pointed that out to me in the same conversation 12 years ago. He was like, Kev, he's like, let me ask you something. He's like, when you give to somebody who just really appreciates it, how does that make you feel? And I'm like, oh, I said, man, Jesse, I love that feeling. I said, in fact, I don't even know a better feeling than that. It is absolutely amazing. And he's like, right? And he's like, but Kev, he's like, you realize that by showing up the way that you do, not opening yourself to receiving, he's like, you are actually depriving others from having that feeling that you just told me was the most amazing feeling ever. He's like, Kev, he's like, who are you to deprive others from having that experience? He's like, you want to open yourself up to receiving as well, because people already know who you are. They already know you're this giving and generous guy. Let people who want to, let them give to you. Open yourself up to receiving. Let people give to you. Don't shut them down. And not only that, play a game with it. How much can you expand your receiving muscle? And I've been playing that game for 12 years, Jessica. And not only that, I've been helping other entrepreneurs play the same game, because most of them, they kind of suck at receiving too, And it's been pretty dang cool to help other entrepreneurs, and just by sharing some of the experiences I've had, and help them expand their own receiving muscle. Because when we can receive more, we also can give more too, And so
I love that. I feel like it also sometimes it starts with the small things of like someone just inviting you for dinner and you being okay with it and being like, oh, thank you, instead of being like, no, I want to pay. Like sometimes I feel like it just starts with those small things of like you allowing someone to invite you to dinner. I love that story. I'm gonna actually write that down, and I'm gonna do the appreciation thing, because that's beautiful. I'm actually gonna do that.
Well, I'll tell you, I just make it a daily habit for me. I just, usually, because I'll usually do a morning time of just meditation, and then whoever's names come up for me during that, because it always happens that somebody will come up, I'll reach out to that person and I'll send a message. I'll send an audio message. I'll send a text message, whatever. And, and just, I can tell you that by just not looking at this as a strategy or a tactic or anything like that, but just letting it become who we are, and being genuinely appreciative of each other, and just showing that appreciation on a regular basis. And we don't have to spend a lot of time, but I will tell you that over the last 12 years of just sending messages of appreciation, probably thousands of them at this point, I can't tell you how many conversations that's led to, and how many, just conversations that the people have wanted to have as a result of that, or then they're like, oh my gosh, Kev, I want to connect you with so and so, or what have you. I mean, nothing but good is going to come from us being actively and genuinely appreciative of each other, and showing that and letting people know, because we might be appreciative of people, but maybe we don't let them know, and we want to let them know this,
I agree. I agree. It's sometimes so interesting for me when like the whole social media thing is like, sometimes I feel like, oh, no one's watching, no one is really seeing my stuff. And then sometimes I would have this random person reach out to me that I knew 10 years ago. They're like, hey, I've been watching you since your beginning. I'm like, where have you been? I haven't even seen you anywhere. And they're like, I love everything that you do. Thank you. And I'm like, wow, out of nowhere. So you also never know what people are seeing, because people are watching, and
well, yes,
how
they
you,
are.
everyone
Yes,
is watching.
they are.
It sounds in a positive way, right? We want to put it into the positive way. But yeah, people are watching, people are seeing a lot. And even if you think you're talking to the void, that's not true, because there's always going to be someone that might need to hear your message. Always
Absolutely.
someone that needs to hear your words. Because again, you never know the whole story.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Jessica, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. And for anybody listening, that's just like, man, Kevin, I really like Jessica. I just love who she is. I love how she shows up. How can they find out more about you and the work that you're doing? And any websites or resources that we can share with them?
Yes. Well, first of all, I also want to thank you, Kevin, for having me on your podcast. It really, really means a lot to me. And I appreciate you for you giving me space to share my message with your beautiful community. So thank you for that. How can people find me? I think it depends. I feel like everyone has their own little like, I like websites, I like Instagram, I like LinkedIn, I like Facebook. So pretty much you can find me everywhere. My website is called the Women's Academy of Transformation. I know it's a very long name, but on that website you will find pretty much everything about my work and all of that kind of stuff. I think resources and like information, educational stuff is best on my Instagram account, which is at I am Jessica Karwat. And then I also have LinkedIn, obviously, Jessica Karwat, easy. I think you'll find me, and Facebook. We're friends as well, Kevin. So you'll probably find me through Kevin's friends list as well, Jessica Karwat. So, and if you just want to write me an email directly, it's info@jessicakarwat.com. So
Perfect.
hopefully that's simple enough.
That is simple enough. Well, Jessica, once again, thank you so much. And I just want to, is there any last thing you feel just led to share before we call it a wrap?
Yes, I do think I've come a long way to understand that relationships are everything. And it doesn't matter if you're starting out or where you are in your business or what you do in life. It doesn't even have to be like the relationships that I have that are my deepest relationships, even though we might be in the same business. It's not a business relationship. It actually has become so much more than that. And I think if you can truly come into with an open heart and truly serve, those relationships can become so beautiful. So I would definitely say, you know, putting that at the forefront and serving people in any possible way, and not, of course, at the expense of your well-being. If you feel like you're only giving and eventually only have an empty cup, because that's what I'm trying to teach my clients, because women
Yeah,
are good at
yeah,
giving and never receiving. But I think that the healthy balance really is wonderful, where, you know, giving back to yourself while giving to others. And the more obviously you nurture your own well-being, your own health, the more you will be able to show up to others.
yeah.
And that's what I learned from Hannah and Mario. Mario meditates 2 hours a day, is a big fan of Joe Dispenza. So I learned a lot from those two amazing human beings, that you come first, and then you are able to serve and be there for others. So that's my last words.
Well, and that's beautiful, and you're so right. You know, you're so right. When we allow ourselves to receive, it just allows us to give that much more and stuff. We can't give from an empty cup, you know, and we've got to fill our own cup as well, and then we have so much more to give. And it's like this game, this experiment, if we will, of, you know, how much can I possibly receive? How much can I expand my receiving muscle, knowing that I'm also just going to keep on being the giver that I am. I'm going to keep doing that, and it just keeps on growing and growing and growing, and it's an exciting game and experiment to play, and yeah. So, well, thank you so much again. It has been such an honor having this conversation with you, and I am just like really excited to get it out there and share it with a lot of other entrepreneurs, Jessica. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.